Tonight, billions for batteries.
What is important is that we're building an industry.
Quebec and Ottawa bet big on electric vehicles, but will the investment pay off? A humanitarian crisis unfolding along the border in Azerbaijan. CBC News is there as thousands flee. And the standing ovation, the resignation, and the apology.
All of us who were in this house on Friday regret deeply having stood and clapped.
At Issue breaks down the damage done.
This is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. Canada is going all in on electric tonight, partnering with Quebec to secure a new deal that's being described as the biggest private investment in the province's history. Together, they've reached an agreement with Northvolt, a Swedish EV battery manufacturing giant. The initial phase of their partnership is said to be worth $7 billion. But that deal comes with a cost. Alison Northcott now with the plan, the price, and the potential payoff.
It's the size of more than 300 football fields and set to be the site of Canada's newest electric vehicle battery plant.
This facility will be able to produce batteries for 1 million electric vehicles a year. And at full production capacity, the plant will contribute up to $1.6 billion to our economy.
It took major investments from the federal and Quebec governments, $2.7 billion combined, and there could be billions more in incentives once production begins.
What is important is that we're building an industry.
The deal with Swedish company Northvolt is the latest in a string of government investments in the EV industry, including a Volkswagen battery plant in St. Thomas, Ontario. Canada has to compete with other jurisdictions, particularly the U.S., as it also offers big incentives to lure companies there.
The EU and the U.S. And other economies like China are moving forward with strong industrial policy on electric vehicles.
You just have to put your hand deep in your pocket and take out a big whack of cash to get the thing off the ground.
Northvolt says it chose Quebec for its hydroelectricity, natural resources, and pool of talent, but the government money helped too.
Canada put itself on a level playing field with what United States has been doing. So it is extremely important.
This is the site of the new plant, which the government say will create 3,000 jobs. But there is some skepticism and opposition around the project too. Resident Francois Cousineau launched a petition. He says the plant has no place here close to residences and a daycare. Some say it's a lot of taxpayers' money and the economic spin-offs aren't guaranteed.
I don't believe it will reap the benefits commensurate with what they have determined.
That will take time to find out. Northvolt's plant is set to start operating in 2026. Alison Northcott, CBC News, McMasterville, Quebec.
In Alberta, it's a different conversation tonight about green technology. Premier Danielle Smith is taking aim at Ottawa's target for a net zero power grid. As Erin Collins tells us, she says meeting that deadline would mean blackouts in the province.
Alberta's premier panning Ottawa's plan to green Canada's grid.
They are disastrously uninformed and totally disconnected from reality.
The draft clean electricity law, an attempt to get to net zero by 2035. A big problem for Alberta, which relies on natural gas for 60% of its power. Despite a boom in clean energy, gas still needed when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, something the Premier says won't change by 2035.
Our province would be left at risk of blackouts and brownouts at the mercy of minus 30-degree deep freezes during the coldest months of the winter.
The independent operator of Alberta's grid echoed the government's message just an hour earlier.
The provincial grid will need sufficient dispatchable generation to meet the cold, dark, windless winter nights that we have in this province.
But in a statement, the federal minister of the environment wrote any claim that building a clean electricity grid will lead to blackouts is misinformation designed to inflame, not inform, urging the regulator to publicly release its analysis that underlies these claims. Well, this economist wants to see the math too, but he agrees getting Alberta's grid to net zero by 2035 will be challenging.
from my point of view, it's really always been incumbent on the province and the feds to meet to discuss the required changes to the regulation to make it more workable.
Alberta clashing with Ottawa over energy policy is nothing new. The province wants the greening of Canada's grid pushed to 2050. Alberta's premier ready to defy the federal government with untested legislation aimed at limiting federal overreach.
We're preparing a Sovereignty Act motion, and I'm hoping we don't have to use it. That's why we're at the table having these negotiations.
This public campaign, a sign that negotiations on the future of Canada's electricity grid are heating up. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
Saskatchewan's premier says he will use the notwithstanding clause to override a judge's decision and to protect his government's school pronoun policy. So last month, the province announced all students under 16 needed parental consent to use different names or pronouns at school. A Regina judge issued an injunction today putting that policy on hold. Then Scott Moe issued a statement calling the decision judicial overreach. The notwithstanding clause prevents any judicial review of the legislation in question. Moe says he will recall the legislature on October the 10th to override the injunction. And British Columbia is reporting a spike in respiratory illness, and so it's bringing back a mask mandate for healthcare settings.
It's important as we have more infections in the community that we do what we need to do to protect those people who are most at risk of having severe illness and frankly from dying.
The new rules apply to hospitals, long-term care homes, and assisted living settings. They come into effect on October the 3rd. Health officials say they're not planning to expand the mandate, but there is a renewed push for vaccination both for the flu and COVID. And Pfizer's new COVID vaccine was approved by Health Canada for anyone 6 months or older. This shot focuses specifically on Omicron-related variants. It's expected to roll out in the coming weeks. And a Sikh activist in BC says the RCMP warned him about threats to his life. Gurmeet Singh Tour says he was with Hardeep Singh Nijjar the day he was killed outside their Gurdwara in Surrey. Speaking through an interpreter, he told CBC News about how a month later Mounties delivered that warning.
On August 24th at around 11:30 p.m., Surrey RCMP and Sept, the federal police, they came to his house and issued a duty to warn.
A pro-separatist group that he belongs to released what it says is that police document. CBC News is working to verify it. After Nijjar's murder in June, Tour actively campaigned for a non-binding vote on an independent Sikh state, which the Indian government denounced. Weeks after that, the Prime Minister publicly accused New Delhi of being involved in Nijjar's death. And according to Trudeau, he was told the U.S. Secretary of State would bring up that accusation when he met with his Indian counterpart in Washington today. As Katie Simpson tells us now, that meeting comes as some American Sikhs are raising concerns about their own safety.
The body language reads, all business. The U.S. Secretary of State and his Indian counterpart exchanging brief pleasantries.
It's a pleasure to welcome my friend.
Ahead of a difficult meeting. The murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar and Canada's allegation India's government was involved would be addressed, the Prime Minister says he was assured.
I think it's extremely important that all of us continue to engage constructively and seriously with the government of India.
It's a diplomatic tightrope for the Americans, who are actively deepening ties with India as a way to check China's growing power. U.S. President Joe Biden even hosted India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi for a state dinner at the White House this summer.
Two great friends, two great nations, and two great powers. Cheers.
At the same time, they say they're pressing on Canada's behalf.
We have consistently engaged with the Indian government on this question and have urged them to cooperate.
U.S. lawmakers are also requesting an official briefing. On social media, some offer to support Canada and its investigation, with promises to work with local and federal government officials to protect the Sikh community.
Well, certainly that's very, very, very concerning and very, very serious.
Some deeply alarmed American Sikh activists are meeting those lawmakers. Pritpal Singh says he was warned by the FBI of a credible threat against him days after Nijjar's murder.
We are on the threat that it can happen to us also.
That's why we are here.
He believes the threat was from India, though the FBI would not confirm it to him or comment to CBC News.
Are you concerned for your own safety right now?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. But we are concerned. We are not frightened. We are not scared.
Given the sensitivity, U.S. lawmakers are choosing their words carefully, emphasizing cooperation and accountability. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
And Washington is careening towards another government shutdown. Negotiations on raising the limit on federal debt have stalled. But Paul Hunter shows us congressional Republicans are keeping one thing going, an inquiry into impeaching U.S. President Joe Biden.
It didn't quite have the feel of the makings of a political upheaval.
At least 10 times, Joe Biden lied to the American people.
But as Republicans opened their impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden, they certainly talked the talk.
The House Oversight and Accountability Committee has uncovered a mountain of evidence revealing how Joe Biden abused his public office for his family's financial gain.
Problem is, as Democrats were quick to underline, despite multiple prior investigations by Republicans, zero evidence of that has ever been put forward.
If the Republicans had a smoking gun or even a dripping water pistol, they would be presenting it today, but they've got nothing on Joe Biden.
The first witnesses, legal experts who likewise see little so far.
I do not believe that the current evidence would support articles of impeachment.
Democrats see the whole thing as a sham aimed at besmirching Biden ahead of next year's election. The president himself was meanwhile forcefully slamming his likely opponent next year, Donald Trump, and Trump's most vociferous supporters.
I believe there's no place in America, none, for political violence.
With Trump having slammed Biden the night before at a speech in Michigan, Americans may well see the 2024 campaigns as now in unofficial full swing. As Trump soars ahead in his party's contest to be the nominee, he skipped a second primary debate. His Republican rivals often then spiraling into this.
We want to get things done. Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting while I'm speaking.
All of that as the U.S. braces for a government shutdown starting Saturday night as lawmakers bicker over spending. Most government services would stop indefinitely, but not the impeachment inquiry, set to continue for weeks with or without evidence. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
3 people are dead in the Netherlands after a gunman opened fire at 2 locations in the city of Rotterdam. Police say a suspect killed a woman and her teenage daughter in their home and set a fire. He then allegedly went to a nearby university hospital classroom, killing a male teacher and setting another fire. Police arrested a 32-year-old with a gun and body armor nearby. No word yet on a motive. The crisis unfolding in the Nagorno-Karabakh area has taken a new turn tonight. The disputed region will soon cease to exist. More than 70,000 Armenians have fled, fearing violent reprisals after a military takeover by Azerbaijan. Now, Armenian officials say its government there will dissolve and the region along with it. Briar Stewart is near the border again tonight, where refugees continue to pour in.
There is a weariness here that spans generations. After leaving their homes, many are on the move again to regions across the country where they'll be given temporary accommodation. I don't have anywhere to go, says a woman who is hoping to take her children and mother-in-law to Yerevan. But there's no bus to the capital here. She's among the wave of ethnic Armenians who've already left Nagorno-Karabakh, a breakaway territory that local officials now say will be dissolved by the end of the year, after Azerbaijan regained control of it during a 24-hour military operation. This soldier was in the trenches that day and says the local Armenian forces were quickly overwhelmed by artillery and drones. I'm in tears, he says. We've lost the homeland. He says he surrendered his weapons as part of the ceasefire, but can't be sure that all of the other military units have too. Azerbaijan released this video of the former leader of the breakaway republic, Ruben Vardanyan, a billionaire and philanthropist who's being accused now of financing terrorism. Azerbaijan says there are a few hundred Armenians from Karabakh who it wants to investigate. Everyone else is free to go, but only if they want to.
Armenians and Azerbaijanis are living side by side.
Hikmet Hayev is a foreign policy advisor to Azerbaijan's president. He tells CBC News that the country disputes what Karabakh officials and evacuees are saying about the offensive, that civilians, including children, were killed.
Unfortunately, what we see is there was a lot of elements of the disinformation and fake news.
But I'm wondering, how do you expect people to believe that there's disinformation and fake news when there hasn't been any independent verification?
We are also carefully studying all of the statements and allegations, and we are trying to put also in a wider picture and analyzing with our police officers on the ground.
The region has been sealed off for months by a blockade, but he says a team from the UN will be invited during the coming days, even as thousands of refugees continue to leave.
So, Briar, we can see you're at the Goris evacuation center tonight, and I suppose the objective of people there right now is just trying to figure out what happens next.
Well, absolutely. Azeri officials have said that they will guarantee the security of residents still in Nagorno-Karabakh, but that likely doesn't apply to the small group that they say they are investigating. Now, on the humanitarian crisis side, Canada has provided $2.5 million to the Red Cross, which is on the ground supporting refugees. And the need is really great, Adrian. I think one of the things that is striking is the psychological toll. We've spoken with a number of people who say they're numb for having to leave their homes, and they're really at a loss as to what to do next.
All right, Briar Stewart, thanks to you and the team. The Irish actor who gave us all his unique rendition of Dumbledore has died.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living.
How fellow actors are remembering Micheal Gambon. Some Indigenous groups are calling on the government to change travel rules.
We prefer to identify ourselves as Mohawk and travel back and forth in our homeland as Mohawk.
Now the immigration minister is weighing in. And a rare sighting in the deep sea.
It's always such an exciting moment to see a dumbo octopus like this.
We're back in 2 minutes. Thousands gathered in Ottawa ahead of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Students and educators listened to knowledge keepers and a message from Governor General Mary Simon.
Let us build bridges of understanding, respect, healing, and reconciliation, because each of us must contribute to our collective journey of reconciliation in big and small ways.
And the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is Saturday. For Indigenous people who do not identify as Canadian, it can be difficult to travel to their traditional territories when it means crossing the border. But CBC News has learned that could now change. Olivia Stefanovic explains.
This is Kenneth Deer's official documentation.
Zurich, Montreal, Geneva.
A passport issued by his people because he doesn't see himself as Canadian.
We prefer to identify ourselves as Mohawk and travel back and forth in our homeland as Mohawk.
The U.S. recognizes a treaty that allows Indigenous people to travel across the border freely. But in Canada, it's not accepted, forcing Deer to constantly explain and justify his right to travel through his territory that stretches across the Canada-U.S. border.
It's incredibly frustrating, and also it's demeaning for the government of Canada to say that you can't cross freely in your own homeland.
Mark Miller learned a lot about the issue as the former Minister of Federal Indigenous Departments.
That's something that I think we need to fix as a country.
Now, as the new immigration minister, Miller says it's time Canada recognizes Indigenous peoples have a fundamental right to move freely through their homelands across international boundaries.
It'll take time, but it is one of my top priorities.
It's, I think, long overdue that Canada take this issue seriously.
Natan Obed has personally appealed to the government for help. The Inuit leader says families in Canada are separated from relatives in Alaska and Greenland. Communities cut off from traditional harvesting spots in the sea and land.
It disrupts our society. It disrupts the natural way in which we live our lives.
A senior government source says Ottawa is considering amending immigration legislation. It's also looking at whether to grant exemptions for Indigenous people living outside of the country to live and possibly work in Canada. A decision is expected by next year. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
There are tributes tonight to the actor who played Dumbledore in several Harry Potter films. Sir Micheal Gambon has died at the age of 82.
Harry Potter.
While his wizardly turn was sometimes criticized by Potter fans as less than faithful to the books.
Harry, you put your name in a goblet of fire. That's up to you.
I have a choice.
Gambon etched Dumbledore into the memories of millions with humor, charm, and compassion.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
His career spanned 6 decades on both stage and screen.
I'm sorry, the shame.
Starring alongside the likes of Helen Mirren.
I'm going to smile when I think about Mike because he was incredibly funny, an extraordinary actor.
What do you want?
And we will all miss him a lot.
Gambon died peacefully, his wife and son at his bedside, after a bout of pneumonia. The Blue Jays are keeping fans guessing whether they will make it to the playoffs.
I'll be sitting on the edge of my seat for sure tonight.
What will it take to clinch a spot?
Don't forget me when I'm gone.
Canada's Walk of Fame salutes the 80s.
There were some very excited text messages between the band.
And Rosie's here with that issue. Hey, Rosie.
Hey, Adrian, tonight we're going to talk about Trudeau's apology on behalf of Parliament.
On behalf of all of us in this House, I would like to present unreserved apologies for what took place on Friday.
Did the apology do enough to make up for that mistake last Friday? Chantal, Althea, and Andrew join me to talk about that and more.
Yep, that's Loverboy on stage in Toronto tonight as that classic band and several others are inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame, including Parachute Club, Glass Tiger, and Trooper, whose classic hit, Raise a Little Hell, was covered by Nova Scotia rockers, The Trues. All in, 13 huge Canadian acts from back in the day were celebrated in a group induction ceremony live at Toronto's Massey Hall. The Toronto Blue Jays are now heavy favorites to sneak into the playoffs, but as Thomas Daigle shows us, they're not making it easy on themselves or their fans.
On the cusp of a playoff spot, the Toronto Blue Jays are keeping fans guessing right up until the last weekend of the regular season.
This is a team that, fully expects to get into the postseason, and when we do, to make a really deep run.
We care. We want to win. We want to pop some champagne and have a lot of fun on the way.
Fans poured in for a crucial home game filled with nervous energy and dreams of baseball deep into October.
I'll be sitting on the edge of my seat for sure tonight.
Just got to put their head down and try a little bit harder.
Coming off back-to-back losses where the Jays failed to score a single run. Thursday night, facing the Yankees,
fly ball, deep right.
They broke out of that funk early and went on to win. It's been a roller coaster season.
And he gets one in the air.
With new fan favorite Davis Schneider making a record-breaking debut in August.
Davis Schneider homers in his first big league at-bats.
While the team's poor performance in mid-September got them booed at home. Consider, about 2 weeks ago, Toronto slumped to less than a 34% chance of making the playoffs. Then after a string of wins and some good luck, on Thursday their odds stood at 90%.
This team has the grit. They always say, you know what, there were bad games, but we're going to come back and do it. And they actually do stick to their words, and I really love seeing that.
With the Jays close to clinching, on Thursday they put postseason tickets on sale.
Such a big deal.
Veronica Chung scored seats for a potential second-round division series.
Hopefully it happens.
Next week's wildcard round would only be the first step. The Jays are a team with World Series aspirations, and that's a stage they haven't reached in 30 years. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, now it's time to break down the news shaping our world amidst a tumultuous time in Ottawa. Lots for Rosie to tackle with that issue.
At issue tonight, Canada's apology after the resignation of the Speaker of the House for inviting and honoring a Ukrainian vet who fought in a Nazi unit. The Prime Minister tried to clean up the mess.
On behalf of all of us in this House, I would like to present unreserved apologies for what took place on Friday.
But the Conservatives want to keep the heat on Justin Trudeau himself.
But whether you blame him or the Liberal Speaker for recognizing a Nazi on the floor of the House of Commons, we all agree that it took him 5 days while he hid under a rock.
So is the apology enough to blunt any political damage? I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj. I will say it was 5 days from when this event took place on Friday. It was not 5 days from when we discovered that this had happened and when the Speaker eventually resigned. It took about 3 days for the Prime Minister to get to that point. But Chantal, what did you make of what the Prime Minister had to say, the way he did it, and whether it was the appropriate thing to do?
So first, just a word about the Conservatives. They are actually veering into where the NDP and the Bloc Québécois were at the time of the apology. Two, I'm totally okay with the Prime Minister not showing up for 2 days while the House sorts itself out about its Speaker. Yeah. It is the business of MPs to do that. But I think I expected that those 2 days would have been used to reach out to President Zelensky or to reach out to the Jewish community in this country or to veterans. And I'm a bit surprised that none of this happened. I am not saying Justin Trudeau is responsible for this mess, but I am saying that he is responsible for cleaning it up on behalf of Canada.
From what I understand, there's been some reach out, at least between Melanie Joly and Ukrainian counterparts. And yeah, go ahead, Chantal.
Yeah, okay, but you and I, we get these readouts when Justin Trudeau speaks to anyone who is a government leader, including President Zelensky. Maybe I missed it and you didn't, but I did not get a readout of a conversation between the Prime Minister and President Zelensky.
You didn't, and I checked again today, and it hasn't happened. Doesn't mean it won't, but so far it hasn't happened. Andrew, what did you make of the apology? And then we'll get to the Conservatives and their response.
Yeah, I agree with Chantal. It was maybe a little tardy. The Prime Minister had a chance to get out in front of this, and I think partly because he was trying to avoid the trap that the opposition was laying for him of it being his personal responsibility, which we can get into. I think he was a little too cautious, therefore, in regards to actually showing some leadership on this. We can get into the parsing, should he have apologized just on the part of the Government of Canada or of parliamentarians, but the point is there needed to be some symbolic offering in addition to the Speaker's on behalf of Parliament of Canada, Government of Canada, Canada as a whole, and he's the person that needs to do that. So a day late and a dollar short, but the right thing to do.
And it needed to be done in the House too, Althea, so that it would be on the record and sort of part of history.
There's a period of time where ministers can make statements, and you would have expected an apology of this stature to be made in a time and space where he had the time to fully apologize. I agree with everything Chantal has said about you would have expected the Prime Minister to reach out to the President, to reach out to the members of the Jewish community, leaders, and to veterans, which are all points actually that the Bloc Québécois has been making all week. Frankly, the Bloc Québécois has been acting like and the NDP as well. I think they've really rose this week to the occasion. But I also would have expected members of Parliament writ large, all of them, to apologize in their own name. Like, I wasn't in the House on Friday, but I would have expected that if I had gotten up and saluted a man that I'd later discover fought with the Nazis, I would want to apologize for my behavior. And I'm surprised that we did not see an outpouring. A few people have, Mr. Blanchet being one of them. But that's something I feel like really lacking this week.
Can we talk a little bit about the Conservative response? Chantal, you alluded to the way it has shifted a tiny bit today, suggesting that it's either the Liberal Speaker, and we know that a Speaker is not a partisan when they're in their role, or the Prime Minister who is responsible. But they are dragging it in front of committee. That started today. They didn't have the Speaker on their witness list. There is, I think, an ongoing effort to make it political, and I wonder what you think about that.
And I think that it's failing. The fact that Canada screwed up is accepted, I think, universally. But the notion that it was the Prime Minister that should have been vetting the guests in the House of Commons, I let you imagine, and maybe I say this because I'm sensitive to the Quebec sovereigntist issue, but are we saying that a Liberal or a Conservative government would be in charge of accepting who the Bloc Québécois or even the NDP invites in the gallery? Mm-hmm. Parliament belongs to MPs. It does not belong to the Prime Minister. And the notion that the government can veto who you invite makes no sense. That doesn't mean there's no vetting. There is vetting done by the protocol office. But at the end of the day, if the Speaker wants to invite someone, it is not up to the PMO to say, you can't do that.
So are the Conservatives, Andrew, hoping that Canadians don't understand this distinction? And is there a danger in making that argument again and again?
Well, we're long past the stage of trying to repair the damage done by the mistake, and we're now into trying to inflict maximum damage on the Prime Minister. Yeah. That's part of the process to some extent. There is, a candidate to be made. There are questions to be answered, not necessarily by him, but we certainly need to get to the bottom of how this happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. It would be one thing if the Speaker were the Prime Minister's subordinate. We don't want leaders to be able to hide behind their subordinates and blame them. And for example, I think the Speaker it was probably one of his staff that screwed up on this in terms of the vetting, but he didn't blame the staff. He properly took responsibility. But the Speaker is not the subordinate of the Prime Minister. And so to speak as if he was, as if the Prime Minister should wear this when it's very clear that the PMO was not involved in this. I mean, the argument seems to be that they should be or should have been. And I think for all the reasons that we're stating, that's not necessarily the case. I will say, however, it's a bit precious, not for anybody on this panel, but for people in the opposition to be suddenly and in the government for that matter, I should say the government, of being suddenly extraordinarily concerned with the rights and prerogatives of Parliament. Among the long list of powers and privileges and prerogatives that have been lost to Parliament and trampled over by government, who gets on the Speaker's guest list ranks pretty low.
Well, maybe it's a new opening for you to make all these arguments, Andrew. We could look at it in a positive light.
Or for Parliament to do so.
Yes, exactly. Althea, what do you make of the tack the Conservatives have taken and whether they've altered it slightly, as Chantal points out?
Slightly, but they're still trying to suggest that the RCMP should have played a role, that the public safety minister is ultimately responsible, and therefore the Prime Minister is ultimately responsible. I mean, I feel like we're speaking to two different audiences. There is an audience that wants to believe what they choose to believe, and the facts are not related to this. And this is not unique to this current situation. In the spring, when we had the whole China stuff, Pierre Poilievre was talking about Justin Trudeau being in the pocket of Beijing. I mean, there are a lot of things to legitimately criticize what happened in the spring, but that is an accusation that, was never shown to be accurate. And I feel like we're just adding more misinformation upon misinformation and selectively saying things like, well, the Prime Minister should be responsible for the itinerary. Well, if the itinerary is vetted by the Prime Minister's office or protocol or PCO, it doesn't mean that these individuals are approving who the Speaker invites and allows to sit in the Speaker's gallery. These are two completely different things, and I think it's lost on most people, and people will choose to believe whatever facts they believe are actually facts from whoever they believe has most authority in sending out that message.
I should say a little bit of opposition overstatement, I will say, is part of the process. That's how they get attention. It's how they make their point. The rest of us can call them out on it.
Yes, exactly.
But a little bit of exaggeration is part of the process.
I would like people to stay within the lane of factual things.
Okay. Last word to Chantal. Yeah.
And that's basically where we are. If the official opposition wants to overstate its case, all official oppositions have played this game. If it wants to ignore facts, there is no reason why people like us should be sitting around saying, great game.
That's right.
You're scoring points on the Prime Minister.
I agree.
Because if we do that, we're going to become the people who cover Donald Trump in the U.S.
That's right.
And say, well, it works, so it's great. And I don't think I want to live in that universe.
Okay. Good conversation. We're going to take a little break right here. And when we come back, we'll take a look at how the last couple of weeks really have affected, if they have, Canada's international reputation.
India needs to work with Canada to ensure that we get the full facts of this matter.
Whether it be dealing with Ukraine or dealing with India, how is this affecting this country's reputation? That's next. It's been a challenging couple of weeks for Canada diplomatically. A visit from Ukraine's president overshadowed in the House of Commons, and retaliation from India's government after the Prime Minister connected it to the murder of a Canadian.
Well, I think it's extremely important that all of us continue to engage constructively and seriously with the government of India.
How has Canada's reputation on the international stage been affected, and what might it mean on foreign policy files? Okay, everybody's back. Chantal, Andrew, and Althea. Andrew, why don't you start us off on this? I think there was an initial reaction about the allegations Justin Trudeau made against India, which was that, we talked about it. This is potentially really damaging. This might isolate Canada. I wonder whether you think that has changed as people have started to learn maybe a little bit more, and whether the past 10 days or so have been cause for concern for Canada's role.
Yeah, I think it's less that it's affected our reputation than perhaps revealed it. I don't want to overstate this. I think various countries had various reasons for wanting to soft pedal to some extent on India. It did emerge that we had backing in terms of international, other countries' intelligence. But at the same time, people were certainly very cautious in picking their words in terms of supporting us. But what we've seen with both India and China in recent times is that they're willing to bully us and push us around. And when you're in that kind of world, you need allies. Well, as somebody said the other day, we're in a hard power moment, which isn't exactly to Canada's advantage. And perhaps it should be. I guess we're in a time when we're learning that soft power is very much related to your hard power. Unless you're prepared to pony up and put boots in the ground and be a reliable ally in ways that are difficult and costly, then people, when the chips are down, are not going to necessarily be riding to your aid and willing to speak up for you when you really need them. So we've acquired, I think, a well-earned reputation as a bit of a freeloader, not just on defense spending, but on things like peacekeeping, on things like foreign aid. We've relied on our own sort of self-image as everybody's good guy, that the whole world loves Canada. And what we're finding is, no, you have to kind of earn that support, and it's not just from being nice and high-minded. It's from hard decisions and devoting resources to things that we haven't been willing to devote resources to.
Though Canada has put up $9.5 billion to Ukraine. I mean, obviously there are things that we can't do because we don't have them, but that's not chump change either.
No,
yeah.
But we have that infamous moment when the Prime Minister said we're never going to meet our 2% target on the of GDP on defense spending for NATO.
Chantal.
Well, I suspect that any middle power that would be caught in a fight with India, China, and Russia, no matter the height of its contribution to NATO or whatever, would find that it's got the size to take on that battle. And you can say that we got where we are on China and India and Russia for a number of good reasons. And we didn't look for those fights necessarily. But the fact is that it's a field of rules. This is a government that came into power wanting to open more to China. Then it turned to India for a substitute. And then there's the Russia issue. I think the greatest concern should be that no matter what we do, we need to know, and we will soon enough, how the American election turns out.
Right.
Because at this point, Joe Biden's administration has had Canada's back on China, and it has had Canada's back on India. What happens if the next administration is Donald Trump's administration?
Althea, you want to pick up there?
I was going to use a word I'm not sure I'm allowed to say on television.
So
we are in a bad place, Chantal. That's what would happen. I was actually surprised this week and last how vocal the Americans have been with regards to our brewing battle or this incident with India, it actually made me think, why are they doing this? Why is this to their benefit, to the United States' benefit, to back Canada in this fight with India? There's, I think, much more to this than we know of at the moment. And the UK has also vocalized support for Canada. I think it's been a bad week, bad 2 weeks internationally, because when Canada goes public with allegations of the seriousness, you want to be seen as somebody who's credible, who's responsible, who's mature. And then this incident in Parliament last Friday really harms your ability to make that case, that the information that you're putting forward is valid and should be taken as credible. So I'm very happy I'm not Justin Trudeau most days, all days, but I'm especially happy I'm not Justin Trudeau past 2 weeks.
But Andrew, these are, like, as Chantal points out, these are things that have happened to us, right? Not things we've chosen. And if there was a different foreign policy, more foreign policy, would that have in any way affected what we're seeing?
I wouldn't overstate the degree to which these are happened to us. We've had some responsibility. We were very slow. The government was very slow in dealing with Chinese interference. We're now getting some information that we were rather slow to deal with Indian interference.
Okay.
So we have some responsibility. But I agree with you. It's a big, bad world with very assertive dictatorships or authoritarian countries that are not shy of throwing their weight around. And to pick up on Chantal's point, if we cannot be sure of the Americans, who've always been our big brother and frankly paid for most of our defense, if we can't be sure of their support and encouragement in years to come, then it's much broader than just these present controversies. We have to be rock solid with our alliances. We have to think about how we're going to form solid alliances with countries that will come to our aid diplomatically and otherwise when we really need them. And I think this overarching point that we have to be more reliable allies ourselves is very, very germane. It's highlighted to some extent by these incidents, but it's much broader than that.
Chantal wants in, yep.
But at the end of the day, our biggest relationship is with the US. And nothing is going to change that. So what happens, and I'm not talking about Justin Trudeau here, or a Pierre Poilievre government. How, because I don't think a Pierre Poilievre government would be more open to India, more open to China, and would resolve or would join Russia against Ukraine.
No.
So how going forward are we going to manage this if our main partner becomes what we fear it might become?
Okay, I got to leave it there. Well, we'll talk more about all of this, and I appreciate it. Now I'll send things back to Adrienne in Toronto.
Thank you, Rosie. Next, a sighting that captivated scientists.
What is that? That's a dumbo. Oh, it is.
Yippee! Oh. The ghostly creature in the deep sea in our moment. It's possible you're looking at that creature and thinking, well, it looks a bit supernatural, otherworldly, but it is real. It is called a dumbo octopus, named after the famous Disney elephant because of its enormous ear-shaped fins. So researchers spotted it while exploring the deep sea near the Hawaiian coast. The rare glimpse is our moment.
We filmed this dumbo octopus during a 27-day expedition to Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument, one of the largest marine protected areas in the world, northwest of the Hawaiian Islands. We dive with remotely operated vehicles, car-sized robots, and they were down over 1,600 meters, 5,500 feet into the Pacific, climbing up the side of this underwater mountain. And then from our main ROV, we saw this beautiful lavender, kind of ghostly looking dumbo octopus. Dumbo octopus have unique fins on the side of their head that look a little bit like elephant ears, hence the name dumbo octopus.
Oh, the flappy ears.
So they use these fins to fly through the water, to go hunting, or just moving around their environment. It's always such an exciting moment to see a dumbo octopus. Inside the control room, there's a whole team working together to explore the deep sea. And anytime one of these animals pops in, the room kind of erupts with, dumbo octopus.
So maybe you looked at that and thought, wow, it's glowing. It's not really glowing. That's just sort of the light reflecting from that robotic operated machine down there. But good news is they didn't just see one, they saw 7. There is a lot going on down there. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.